Hi everyone, welcome to this lesson on True, as written and played by Martin Taylor. You know the drill, the top tier patrons roll by on the credit roll as I point out that only the first part of the tutorial is released on YouTube. You get full access on Patreon, and the music notes link down below directs you towards the tab and notation file. True is another tune that came up while looking for some easier songs. There are a few challenging chord shapes in here, especially if you are new to typical jazz chord voicings. But you do get a lot of mileage out of just a few chord shapes because there are quite a lot of repeating sections in this song. The picking patterns are nowhere as difficult as the boom chick thumb picking songs we so often feature here on the channel. For the more advanced players, this tutorial might be a bit on the slow side, but you can always check out the playthrough sections first and then look up certain bars in the lesson when something is giving you problems. No time to waste then, let's get started. Okay, straight to playing then. The guitar is in standard tuning and you need absolutely nothing else. No capo, no thumb pick, no flat pick, nothing. Martin Taylor plays this song on an archtop jazz guitar, more towards the electric spectrum of things. And I would normally play this on my concert model. Now my concert model doesn't have any clear position markings and will be moving quite a bit up and down the neck. So in this case, my trusty old Martin J40 with really clear position markings is the better option. Let's have a look at the intro first. That is already the lead into the first verse. As you can see, just one chord. You start with an open A string, ring finger 7th fret on the D string, middle finger 6th fret on the G string, and then two open strings, B string and E string on top, giving you an A chord with an added 9th in there. Picking pattern, you start with the bass note and the top note on the first beat, and then you switch the thumb to the D string and you just alternate between the D string and the G string and B string. On the 4th beat, you repick the high E string and B string. 3, 4, and then for the next bar, you just drop down the pinky, 7th fret on the G string, giving you an A sus chord. And which sus chord might that be? sus2 or sus4? Well, they are both in here. You have the A, which is the root note, and the high E string, which is the 5th, and then you have both the B, which is the sus2, and the D, which is the sus4. So they are both in here. Picking pattern, exactly the same thing. Switch to the high E string on the last beat. Then you remove the pinky again, back to the first chord. And you drop the pinky back down. And you end on the 3rd beat of the 4th bar. 1, 2, 3. Index finger preferably while you keep everything down and ringing out to the 4th fret, high E string, sliding up to the 5th fret. This is the picker bar into the first verse. So that was the intro. As I told you, nothing too tricky. Let me go through those first 4 bars one more time, really slowly. In this part of the bar, Martin Taylor takes a bit of a break or a pause on that last chord. And you will notice that whenever you see live recordings of him playing through the song, he plays this song rubato, which means he's always slowing down and speeding up. Throughout most of the lesson, I'm going to stick to a steady beat so that you have a really good and clear view on how the exact timing of each and every chord and melody note goes. But once you start playing it, feel free to use that same liberty when timing out the different sections. On to the first verse. Let's just keep it at that. That's the first verse or the first half of the first verse, however you want to view it. But most of what makes up the verse is already here. The next part is mainly repetition. So we start with that slide from the fourth fret to the fifth fret. And then we play again an open E string together with an open A string. Same chord shape as in the intro. Then on the last beat, fourth beat, we play index finger to the fifth fret, back down to the fourth fret. Dropping down the pinky again, and now you're plucking the A string and the G string together. So the D note with the pinky is the melody note in this case. Pattern, back to the high E string, fifth fret, same move, and back to open A string, open E string. Then Mr. Taylor plays a slide going up to the fifth fret, but you're already there, so you have to move down really quickly, just for a second. So that third bar. Sometimes he already switches to the high E string on that second chord. So 1, 2 to the high E string, slide from the fourth fret to an open E string, and then sliding from the seventh fret on the high E string to the ninth fret. I'm most of the time using the pinky because it makes it quite easy to afterwards drop down into the next chord. So I slide up with the pinky from the seventh fret to the ninth fret, then drop down a bar at the seventh fret across four strings, D string, G string, B string, E string, with the middle finger on the eighth fret on the B string, giving you an E minor 11th chord if you add the low E string down below as well. First, those first three bars just around the A chord. Reversing through that arpeggio, E string, B string, G string, D string. Now you will see in each and every live version, and as well throughout this tutorial, this is the arpeggio that Mr. Taylor mixes up most. So it's either this or something else. The only thing that is always the same is the melody note and the bass note. Always high E string, low E string. And then what happens in the rest of the arpeggio doesn't really matter that much. You play four notes and then you drop down the ring finger to the seventh fret. You drop down the whole bar as well. So it sort of shifts from the seventh fret to the fifth fret, dropping down the ring finger on the seventh fret, picking the G string, seventh fret, D string, fifth fret, holding down the bar, and then you drop down from the seventh fret to the sixth fret on the G string. On the original recording, Mr. Taylor does not play a bass note here, so he reverses through that first arpeggio. He is implying an A dominant chord, giving you an E minor to A dominant, which is a 2-5, and we're going to be heading into the 1 just in the next bar. Now, in most live versions, Mr. Taylor does add a bass note, and then he plays, reverses through the arpeggio, then as he shifts down to the 5th fret, together with the ring finger on the 7th fret, open A string as a bass note. If you're learning this from the tabs or you have them with you, make sure that you don't re-pick that 7th fret on the G string the second time around while holding the bar. Make sure that you already switch over, which may seem funny, just not to hold down that note and pick it the second time, but it makes the transition into the A chord a lot more fluent. So, reversing through the arpeggio, re-picking the G string 7th fret, but moving to the ring finger, and ending up on the 6th fret. Then again, Mr. Taylor takes a break here, and then he jumps up to the 10th fret, and then the 9th fret, before leading into the D major 7th chord in the next bar. If you're looking again at the notation, I have notated this as a bar of 5. So if I count along, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. But if you play it, it feels more like a pause on the 4th beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Sort of like just a gentle pause all the way at the end of that beat before you continue with those 2 melody notes. But just to make sure that it doesn't look too crowded in the music notation, I used a bar of 5 here, but don't make too much of an issue out of it. That was the first 4 bars, or those were, sorry, the first 4 bars of the verse. Let me play them one more time, really slowly. Next bar starts with the already mentioned D major 7th chord, which is a standard chord shape, bar across the 5th fret, across 5 strings, ring finger 7th fret on the D string, middle finger 6th fret on the G string, pinky 7th fret on the B string. Again, we just arpeggiate through the chord. We start with the A string and E string, D string, B string, G string. Then we drop down the bar to the 4th fret. We only need 4 strings now, from the D string all the way to the high E string. 4th fret on the G string, 4th fret on the D string. Then you add the pinky, 7th fret on the B string, and the middle finger, 5th fret on the high E string. Which is more or less working around an F sharp minor chord. Those 2 chords back to back. Now a really big jump. We're heading all the way with the pinky up to the 12th fret. Starting on a G sharp minor 7th chord, and this is more or less a standard jazz chord shape as well. Middle finger 11th fret on the A string, index finger 9th fret on the D string, ring finger 11th fret on the G string, and then pinky 12th fret on the B string. I'm using that index finger sort of as a safety, but we're not really playing the D string in this section, so it's just A string and B string to the G string. And then Mr. Taylor switches to a bar on the 9th fret across all 6 strings, only adding the middle finger to the 10th fret on the G string. I often play this separate as well. So instead of using a bar, I like to use index finger, ring finger, middle finger, because it's just a little bit easier to do on an acoustic. So on an electric guitar or an archtop jazz guitar, I might go for the bar as well, but a bar on the 9th fret on an acoustic often is quite a bit of pressure, and I find that it just flows a little bit easier if I remove the bar and just go for separate fingers. So see what works for you. Either you do the Martin Taylor method, which is separate fingers to a bar chord, and then switching to the exact same chord shape we used, 2 frets down, or you go for separate fingers. Whatever you do end up on the same chord shape we started out with, just 2 frets down, giving you an F sharp minor 7th chord this time, and then we drop down to an E chord. You would normally play this if your fingers are small enough, like this. It's just a standard A chord shape on the 7th fret. We don't need the middle finger, so I'm not going to go for the super frilly position here. I'm just going to use the bar. I'm just going to go for index finger and then ring finger, pinky on the 9th fret. You first play A string, B string and G string together to the high E string, and then you move up the pinky to the 10th fret on the B string still. That's the part. This last section is a triplet, so everything before that in that bar are 8th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, ending back up on the same D major 7th chord we played before. That full section. To D major 7. Let me add those first 2 bars as well. Big jump now. Ending back up on D major 7th. When you make that big jump, I'm trying to lead with the pinky. The pinky sticks to the B string and just moves from the 7th fret up to the 12th fret, which is a 5 fret jump. It's not that big, and I use the pinky sort of to navigate to the new position. Ending up on the D major 7th chord, again, mostly an arpeggio. There is one fingering in there that can make all the difference, so you end up on the D major 7th chord. You just arpeggiate A string together with the B string, D string, G string, and then you switch over really quickly with the ring finger to the 4th fret. Which may sound a bit strange, but now you can just place the rest of the next chord, which is an A chord with a C sharp in the bass, just around that ring finger on the 4th fret, making the transition again just a little easier. So again, the D major 7th chord, then you add middle finger, 4th fret on the A string, index finger, 2nd fret on the D string, ring finger is already 4th fret on the G string, is already there, and then the pinky, 5th fret on the B string. Switch. And everything else is just a simple arpeggio. You pick A string, B string at the same time, D string, G string, and then you either transfer the pinky to the high E string, 5th fret, or you do as I do and you just make a really small bar across 2 frets. You get this. So I'm now barring with the pinky across 2 strings. If it's too tricky, then just switch over. Move the pinky to the high E string, works as well. And I almost forgot to mention, it's that high A note that makes it an A chord. If we just played this, then again we have the same chord shape, G sharp minor, F sharp minor, C sharp minor, but it's that high A note that turns it into an A chord with an added 9th in there, before I make things even more confusing. So one more time, that last arpeggio. drop the same fingering down 2 frets, same arpeggio, A string and B string together, then just going through the rest of the arpeggio, so back to back. And then we move up to the 7th fret, bar across 3 strings, D string, G string and B string, together with a low E string, pinky 10th fret, to the 9th fret, or use the ring finger, what works for you. And we end back up on the first beat of the next part of the verse, which is mostly a repeat. So you can basically play the full verse now, and the good news is you can play, I think, up to half, maybe even 60% of the song, because these parts are repeated quite a lot. Let me play those last 4 bars one more time. The full first verse. Let me play one more time through the whole thing really slowly, and we can take a look at the next section. And then when you head into the second verse, there's already a lot of repeating stuff coming up. But before you do that, make sure you get this down all the way, and I will see you again in part 2. See you there. Bye-bye.